Okay.
Are we live?
I don't know. Are we live? I think we're live. Okay, so we're just going to give folks just maybe another minute or two to join, and then we will get started. So if you just want to say hello, you can hear us in the chat. That would be amazing. And then we'll get started. And we're really excited to have you all join us today. And yeah, I don't know. I'm really stoked. See, we have some folks. And just gonna give it a couple more minutes for some folks to join. I see those numbers going up, so that's great. Hey, everybody.
Hi, everybody. I only see Stephanie and Madeline, but
yes, so we don't see you guys, but that's totally fine because I feel like we can see you in the chat, and as long as you can see us, we're really excited to see what we have. Ooh, Nelson SRC says hello. We can hear you. Hello. Amazing. Okay, so I think I'm just gonna get started right now because I want to ask all the questions and get all the drawing going and stuff. So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us this afternoon for an Ask Me Anything event with this year's BC Summer Reading Club artist, Elaine Chen. And I'm Stephanie, the BC SRC Provincial Coordinator, and this is Madeline, and Madeline, introduce yourself.
I'm Madeline, and I'm the BC SRC Provincial Assistant.
Awesome. So before we start asking Elaine some amazing questions, we just wanted to begin by doing a land acknowledgement. So BC Summer Reading Club is honored to serve the many diverse Indigenous nations and communities throughout what is now known as British Columbia. Elaine and I are joining you virtually from the unceded traditional territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations. And Madeline today is joining from the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Queequetlam First Nation. So if you'd like to share what area that you're joining in from today, please do so in the chat. And if you're uncertain of what territory you may be on, you can visit nativeland.ca. And I think we've dropped that link in the chat for you all. So, and I'm gonna pass it over to Madeline now.
Hi, everyone. So we'd also like to acknowledge that the BC Summer Reading Club is sponsored by the British Columbia Library Association and your local public library with the generous assistance of the Public Libraries Branch, Ministry of Municipal Affairs, and QPBC.
And so for this afternoon, Elaine is going to draw and answer all your questions. We want to thank everyone who submitted questions in advance. And if you have questions today, please feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll try to get to everyone's questions. So now I'm going to let our star of the show today introduce herself. So Elaine, introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Elaine Chen. I was born in China and I immigrated to Canada when I was 10, and I actually grew up in Toronto. So I went to Sheridan College studying Bachelor's of Animation, and only recently did I start doing some children's book illustration. And yeah, my first published book was called My Day with Gong Gong, published last year. Oh, well, the year is a blur now. And currently I work full-time as a video game artist at our local Vancouver studio called Clay Entertainment. And yeah, I always grew up drawing and doodling, and I really liked art. And only until my mom told me, I was like, oh, you're pretty good at it, that I continue to do it. And I'm so happy that I could do that full time as an artist, like as a job, which is super awesome. And my favorite medium is watercolor, pencil crayon, and yeah, playing around with that. Unfortunately, I can't show you that while live, so I'm going to use the computer to draw today. And I'm going to start sharing my screen. And if you guys have any ideas of what I should be drawing, definitely put that in the chat.
All right. So does anybody have any ideas for what you'd like to see Elaine draw today? Throw them in the chat. We'll give you a couple of seconds. And I'm just actually going to start with one of our very first questions. So one question that I think we should start off with, maybe an easy question, is, so this was submitted by Ava, who is 11 years old and lives in Burnaby. And Ava wants to know, why do you draw?
Why do I draw? Wow, that's a really deep question. Sometimes I feel like it's almost an innate need to have to draw. I know it sounds very cheesy, but I think a lot of artist friends feels like art is just something that you do. And because even after my day job, I'm still doing more art when I get home because I just like it. So it's like eating and drinking water and sleeping. It's something you have to do, at least for me. Yeah, that's why you have to live.
Amazing. I think maybe can we get you? So we actually got a really cool question from Maskeen, who is 9 years old and lives in Surrey, and they would like to know what your favorite bird is. So maybe you can draw your favorite bird for us.
Ooh, that'd be cool. So around last year, I started writing down every bird I've seen on my phone, just like every year, this is how many birds I've seen. And also, I have pigeons outside my windows all the time. And I learned that their like specific name is called rock pigeons. So I always drew them being very silly once. It's like they are a rock star. I don't know what rock stars look like, but I think they're very cool, probably. So this is a rock pigeon.
Oh, wow.
I love it.
All right, I'll keep working on my rock pigeons. You can ask me more questions if you want to. Oh, but my favorite bird maybe also chickadees, because I'll draw them after, but because they say cheeseburgers. All birds are cute.
This is amazing. I love it. I think Castlegar Library says that they have a wee little bat that visits every summer and is back for 2022. We love a little bat drawing. Its name is Buddy. So maybe you can draw the bat with your rocker pigeon.
Buddy. Oh, they could be the fan club. Okay, I'll work on that.
Nelson. The Nelson Library says that, do you like our profile picture? You should draw the SRC cat.
Oh, we all love that cat.
Yeah.
Does anybody know their name? Because I've been to a couple of workshops and I told everybody the name of the cat. Well, my secret name for them.
Right. Does anybody want to drop some guesses into the chat?
Did you want me to talk about the process of how I draw when I talk, or more just continuous questions?
Yeah. Do you want to tell us? I guess you can. That is one of our questions.
Okay.
So I think, yeah, go for it.
The process of the drawing?
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess with pigeons, I just did more like the overall shape of the thing first. And the pigeons easier than humans. So it was just like, I think their major shape is having their identifying feature is having this shape to their neck compared to other birds. So I like to keep that in mind and how to make this thing I'm drawing more recognizable, starting with the shape. Maybe when I get to drawing something a little bit more complicated, I could go into drawing under and through is very important too. Yeah.
Right. So one of our questions was, how long does it take you to make the design and why? And that was from Hannah, who lives in Richmond.
I'm going to answer that in terms of design for the BC Summer Reading Club, I guess. And
or maybe just in general.
Oh, in general?
Yeah.
Depends on what I'm drawing. I think a lot of drawing time actually ends up being in your head, trying to think about the drawing. This is like time spent that you don't actually see. So I spent some time thinking about what is it I'm going to put on paper and visualizing the drawing in front of me on the page before I almost put it down. Of course, it won't come out exactly the same as I have it in my head, but that's a lot big time spent, as well as doing the roughs, thumbnails, and let's see, that could take, if it's a page of picture book illustration, it might take an hour or two, and there might be a revision on it. You have to spend that again. And then painting takes much longer, maybe 4 or 5 hours per page of picture book illustration painting. And yeah.
So one of our next questions, I'm gonna give you, so this is like a 3 sort of part question. So the first question is from Aria, who lives in Surrey, and she's 7 years old. And it says, at what age did you learn to draw and who taught you? And then Hannah from Richmond again has the same question, another question that's, how long did it take to become an artist?
Okay. You're an artist as soon as you're drawing. If you're doodling right now, you're an artist too. But I guess I started drawing when I was maybe in grade preschool. I was already like taking casual classes in school, and then since I moved to Canada around 10, I think my mom sent me art class to art classes as like an extracurriculum thing to do. And then I learned it more professionally as the age went on, started in college, and yeah. Did I answer that question? I feel like there was another part. Yeah.
So we actually have a question from the chat. TAC wants to know, you mentioned earlier in your process of art roughs, and they just wanted to know what a rough was.
Right. It's a great question. For example, I'm trying to get this drawing of how does this bat look like? I'm first of all already looked up like, what does a bat look like? What does Buddy look like? If so, that library is in the chat, you could tell me what type of bat Buddy is. I have to do like a rough drawing, so it's not the final drawing, and I could make a mistake. I'd be like, I don't want the wing over there. I'm gonna put Buddy on a separate layer here. And then I may pretend this is like one of the final drawings of Buddy. And I was like, okay, this is all scribbles. My roughs sometimes are very scribbly. It just gets the emotion, the pose, and the overall composition possibly down first. And then maybe I take another piece of paper or pretend that there's another piece of paper in real life and clean it up. So maybe this is now the final line work. And yeah, that's what I consider a rough. And you could do as many as you like. Because I'm like, I don't like that bat drawing. I want to make the bat fly instead. Yeah. Scribbles. Rough is scribblier.
How many rough drafts of the SRC artwork did you make?
Ooh. I think I did a lot of character design passes on the page first, because I think that's a very important step of figuring out what this final art will look like. And so there was like 3 or 4 or 5 pages in my sketchbook. Actually, they're in like different sketchbooks. Sometimes I go on the bus and be like, I have another idea. Or when I'm at a coffee shop, it's like, this kid looks cool. I might include the drawing of this kid or something. So it's very hard to count. But the final one for the inside of the pages, once the characters are already down, I didn't take too long. So maybe 1 or 2 before I do the final one. Yeah.
So Castlegar Library, who they have Buddy the bat. They think he's a little brown Myotis bat. So maybe you can Google that. And they say that the drawings of him that you've done so far are fabulous. Thank you.
Oh, he's so fuzzy. Sorry.
And also in the chat, Parth, who is 6 years old, wants to know if you named the SRC cat Meow. So that's our guess so far is Meow cat.
I think all cats are Meow cats, but the cat's name is Henry, and named after the friend who gave me the idea of the quilt. And yeah, it's her cat.
I think now that you mentioned the quilt, maybe Madeline can ask Madeline's question.
Yeah, sure. I absolutely love the drawings of all the different kids, and I know the story behind how you got the idea for the quilt, but I was wondering if you could maybe talk about how you got the ideas for the different children and like what names you have for them or personalities or any kind of story you have behind the actual children in the art.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. I guess you can't see the lineup that I have up right now, but I think there's a couple of them that I could tell you directly who they are people I know in my life. And some of them I reference their personality. Some of them I reference their facial shape. And some of them is like, the spirit of you resembles this character. So I'm going to try and draw you into it. If not the whole face, your hair. So a lot of times I like to reference people in my life because I think everybody is so beautiful in their own, and the most variety you can find is in the world around you. And then I also went with a different face shape of every one of the characters so that they look different than each other. And we get a good variety of different types of people. Yeah. Each one of them have their own story kind of in my head. But yeah, some of them's more shy. Yeah.
That's true. The artwork this year, you captured a lot of different sort of like facial expressions and like emotions and all of the different scenes. And we've like the consistent feedback that we've gotten from folks is how wonderful the artwork is. And like even just like the little details in the backgrounds. I think there's like a little blue teddy bear in the background of like one of the scenes, like that one people talk about a lot.
Oh
and
my, I almost forgot I did that.
yeah, or like the backdrops of the different animals and stuff like that. People have also really taken to. So that's really awesome. With that in mind, oh wait, sorry, yeah.
Oh, sorry, I didn't hear me. But I was like, did anybody notice the bird background? And if they know that since there was a bird question before, that they are all birds from BC, and they're see if you could recognize them.
I did not know that.
They're all real birds.
That's really cool. Tack in the chat, just to add on, wants to know if you're drawing on an iPad right now. What's your setup?
I am drawing on a tablet that's called a Cintiq. So it's a tablet with the screen right in front of me. So it's more like I have a paper in front of me. So I have a different screen where Madeline and Stephanie's faces are on, and where the reference of the bat, brown white Maltese bat, is on just to look at. And I have the other screen for drawing. And I'm drawing in Photoshop.
So we have a question from Nika, who lives in West Vancouver. And they ask, or they say, "Hi, Elaine, my name is Nika and I love art. I'm a big fan of your art. And I was wondering, how do you come up with these ideas and bring them to life?" And I think a couple of other kids have asked similar questions, like, let me see. There's one that I saw that I was looking at. But anyways, yeah, go with that question.
How did I come up with the ideas of my art?
And bring them to life.
Bring them to life. Oh, I think they come to life when the audience like them and like are viewing at them. So thank you for liking my artwork. And it wouldn't be alive without your interpretation of the art you're viewing. And I think, like I mentioned before, I look at real life a lot just for reference, as well as making something that is believable. I think, for example, one of the characters playing volleyball, I have to look up how do people play volleyball, because I personally really don't like volleyball because they hurt my palms. But if I look at references, see how they like play, put it up in the air, it's like, okay, I want to capture a moment that's in motion, then I would pick a certain one that's more representative of that. And I think all the ideas come from something very small, such as all together now, it's like, what brings community? Okay, the sports, and then what sport am I going to pick? So like from one thing to the next, the ideas kind of grow. So letting a small idea that you however insignificant that you think it's not worth drawing, keep picking at it, and maybe something else will grow from that. And yeah.
In the chat, Nelson SRC just wanted to expand on the question that I asked earlier. So do you know all of the characters? Oh, sorry. Do all the characters that you've selected for SRC, do they all have names? And could you talk a bit about how the characters are in your head? So maybe just expanding on what we were talking about before.
Sure. They do have names. I will name them all. Before the ones that I think are pretty obvious to some of my friends are the little boy with the curly red hair. His name is Mason because he references my partner in real life, and he actually plays the saxophone in real life and is a scientist. And so therefore he has glasses, because if you're a scientist, you're reading books all the time. Maybe you don't, maybe your eyes are perfect. And he likes to go camping. So I put him in a lot of the nature scenarios. So that is one of the characters. Charlie has I think they identify as they, them. And I never picked a gender for them, and they are very quiet. So I think they're also a little bit shy. They like reading more often, and so there you can notice the rainbow stockings. That's a little hint there, and they have a earpiece. And actually, that's was inspired by my friend who gave me the quilt because. So they use the earpiece as well. So I was like, okay, it's a subtle way to include a type of disability that is pretty common in our world sometimes. And who else? Who else? Oh, that's Charlie. Kaya was my indigenous little girl. She could be indigenous, or she just likes to be in the sun and go farming a lot. So some of them I like a general scope, but I don't, because it's up to you to decide if you relate to the character, and if that's from a background that resonates with you, then that will be that for you. But her name's Kaya, the little darker skinned girl with a headband that's a little pattern with earrings, and the little basket with vegetables. So she likes farming, and she's a little buck tooth because she probably runs around and like knocked her head somewhere and got her tooth chipped. And she's very messy. So her genes are not evenly height. Yeah. Yeah, that's just 3 of the stories. This is hard to talk about while I'm drawing. I was like, oh, I gotta finish drawing my bat.
So another question that we have is from Dia, who is 12 and lives in Surrey. And Dia wants to know, I just wanted to know how you knew you wanted to be an artist, and did anyone support your choice?
I think I knew I wanted to keep drawing, but when I was choosing my program for this for college, I think I would have been okay if that's the one I applied didn't get in, because I did apply to a couple different programs. So it's kind of like the destiny brought me to where I am. But all the ones I did apply were related to art, sort of, because I just like that was the thing that I was best at. So I think I went with the thing that I think I most enjoy and that I'm good at, that potentially could be a job. But I didn't know at that time. I don't think you know very clearly if it's gonna be your job, because I think people go through many phases of different life and they change directions, and that's totally okay. I think I went on a tangent with I think I lost the original question here.
It's all good. It's all good. Did anyone support your choice?
Yes, there we go. I think when my mom was a little bit hesitant at first if like artist could be a career, but she knew it was made me happy, so she was okay with it. She just allowed it, and then she became supportive.
Awesome. And then let's see.
I think I'm going to draw one of the characters so that I don't have to keep thinking about what am I drawing.
So Maya wants to know, how do you make a mistake and not get super frustrated when you make art, or if your drawing doesn't turn out how you wanted it to turn out?
It's very frustrating. I know. I still struggle with that. And one thing I mentioned was maybe you just get used to it. You get used to you making mistakes and it hurting a little bit less. But also being a little bit less precious of your art, I think helps, because if you make a mistake, grab a new piece of paper, you can always start over and draw again. And it's never going to be exactly what you have in your head, because I think sometimes what you could envision is higher than the skill that you're capable of making the lines at this moment. But you'll get there, so you just keep practicing. And yeah.
That's
Be
great.
patient.
Sorry. In the chat, we have a question that I think Stephanie might also have on her list, about what do you do when you have art block or, idea block?
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. One, you can allow it to happen. I think maybe fighting with your art block or your wall is going to be tough, and your best ideas come from when you're not thinking about it, because maybe you're having an art block because you're stressed about making art too much, or you're really stuck at this one idea. So giving yourself a break, allowing yourself to do something else you enjoy, that's not just art, and that might inspire you to come back to it again. And another way, I guess the opposite of that is forcing yourself go through it. Just keep drawing garbage, drawing things, make bad drawings before it's not bad anymore.
Good question. So building off of that, Natalie, who is 9 years old, wants to know, are you having fun being a wonderful artist, and is it hard?
I'm having lots of fun for sure. I think when it gets hard, I think about, oh, I'm drawing for a job. This is cool. This is crazy. Then that helps me get out of the stressful mindset. I think it's hard when you have a lot of deadlines, or I think artists' tendency is to say yes to a lot of projects. So sometimes I have like too much on my plate. That gets a little bit tough. But you're still making art at the end of the day. So I almost can't complain.
Awesome. I feel like this build. So we had one question of someone that was very excited and wrote in all caps, and their name is Riley. And Riley says, "How hard is it to be a great artist?" And like 30 question marks.
Oh, I think it's very hard because you're your worst critic. So like, I feel like you yourself might not think you're ever going to be great. That's a big word. It's a big, heavy word. So you probably just get to a place where you're like semi-satisfied with yourself, or the drawing that you have in front of you for that moment. Yeah, keep looking up. I think it's good to have a goal. So it's good to keep wanting to improve, because I am not great yet. There's something else I want to get better at. So I'm going to keep doing that and look at somebody else's work. Be like, I could be better.
In the chat, we have a question from Alicia Yu, wants to know, are you always using Adobe Photoshop to draw? On which drawing apps would you recommend for children and for adults?
Okay. I use Photoshop a lot for work, so therefore I'm the most comfortable with it. And I think for the computer, it is one of the better programs, but it is not free. So I think that shouldn't be your stopping point where it's like, okay, I don't want to use this. So there's a lot of other drawing programs out there. I think Sai is one of them, or I think there's a lot, even if you use Microsoft Paint, anything that lets you draw is whatever you have access to, just keep using that and get familiar with that tool. For the iPad, I do use Procreate, and I think that's a really good program very comfortable to use and very intuitive, kind of like paper. So yeah, that'd be my recommendations.
And in terms of, I guess, building off of that, we have another kid named Aria, and they ask, I love to draw too. What are some tips to develop art and creative skills?
I think there's a lot of areas you could improve on art when it comes to, say, like anatomy, perspective, or design. So there's a lot of aspect to it, and it's hard to look at all of them at once. So maybe sometimes pick at the one problem that you think, I can't draw hands. I have trouble with hands. Then maybe just go study that one thing for a bit. If you get too bored of studying, quote unquote, then give yourself a break, doodle, and keep drawing other stuff. Don't be so tied down. But I think it's good to carve out some studying times, observing your hand in real life, observing buildings and drawing that, or maybe you want to get better at color and looking at the colors around you and lighting. And yeah, there's a lot of different subjects that you could divide things down to. Yeah, so learning all about that. Get library books.
Plug. Visit your local libraries.
I know, that's a good plug.
Good job. We can talk about it like as our sponsor for the video today is your local library. Fun times. We have a question that is not related to drawing or anything to do with Summer Reading Club, but Rajik in Squamish wants to know, who is your favorite singer?
Who's my favorite singer? Oh, that's really hard. Oh, we were just playing with karaoke yesterday. I really enjoyed saying Flying to the Moon by Frank Sinatra. I don't Just off the top of my head, that's what we were saying yesterday. Or yeah, I'll get back to you on that one. There's a lot of I'm very bad with picking favorites.
Feel like if you'd like to share your favorite singers in the chat, you guys can also
Yeah, help me out there. Maybe I'll
there's another question from, let's see. We have a few questions from, okay, so Rose wants to know, how many books have you illustrated?
Ooh, I have illustrated, it's hard to count. Let's just say I'll count even the self-published books, then 4. Like I self-published one of my own with my friends just for fun, printing at a print shop. I illustrated one that was kickstarted, called Amelia the Not So Small Superhero. Oh yeah, the book that I made myself is called This is Pami. And then my first official published book is My Day with Gong Gong. And I'm working on another one coming up next year. So I'm still very much into illustrating that right now. And the last one was working with Holt Renfrey. So they technically published it, but they sold it in a store. So it's a funny little situation. So it's not traditionally published, so, but I still finished that book. So there's like 4 physical books I can hold in my hand. That's on my shelf you see back there.
So with that, could you share some of your favorite illustrators and picture books?
Yeah, can they see my camera right now?
Yeah.
Oh, so I really want to share this random book that I don't know where it's from. It's called Squaps the Moonland. It looks very old and I don't know where I got this. And I think it's from a thrift store, but it has such a cute style to it. It's about a little alien person from the moon and it goes back to the moon eventually. I don't know, maybe the story of how I acquired the books is more meaningful to me than the actual book. And I think that could be a lot of reasons why you have your favorite books. Maybe the book was given to you by a loved one. To name another book, I really like Moomin. So Tove Jensen's Moomin books. I have all the comic series. I'm not sure if they're quite children's books, but they're children's books. They're not the traditional picture books. There's a lot more comic involved. Yeah, those are my 2 favorite children's books. Favorite illustrators. I'm really into Bryony May Smith at the moment. Margaret's Unicorn. Bryony May Smith. Margaret's Unicorn. The art style is very fun and very whimsical. And I think I personally really like the whimsicalness of your traditional media on the page and like feels really loose because I feel like that's something I struggle with, but like I aspire to that, like loose type of styles. So yeah.
And so we've talked about you drawing a lot, and I think there's a question that comes up or that people are really curious about. Because I think we have a lot of friends that like video games. So we have 2 questions that are kind of related to video games. Yeah. So Samri wants to know, what video games do you make art for? And Abigail wants to know, which video games have you created animations for? So basically, they want to know what video games have you worked on, and can you talk a little bit more about your role and how you and what you do for video games?
Okay. I am at the company called Clay, and that's the only video game company I've ever been at. I've been there for the last 4 or 5 years. Video game takes a long time to make, so I don't fully feel like I have shipped a game yet, which means to fully publish a game from the beginning to end when I'm actually there working on the whole thing. I don't think I've been there for that process. But everybody moves teams often. And so I've been part of a game called Griffland, and I helped do the trailers for a game called Don't Starve. So my animation is not in the actual game of those 2 games, but we're working on a new game called Rotwood. And it's only been announced recently that that's the name of the game, but we don't have a release date yet. So the name might change by that time, maybe not. I was like, ooh, they'll tell me I wouldn't change anymore. But anyways, the name is called Rotwood, how it's announced right now. And I work on mainly the background. So for example, I drew this girl sitting in grass right now. But what kind of grass is she like in? Like, is it like thorny, or is it round, or what type of forest? Is it pine trees, or is it maple trees? the environment and the backgrounds we're mainly focused on, and the world that the characters are in. So I do the background stuff. So I know when you're playing the game, you're playing the characters, and maybe that's where you're mainly focused on. But without the background, without the world, the characters don't exist in a space that's believable, and it's a big part of the game as well, the gaming experience. And I really enjoy creating the mood and the colors, and yeah, we do a bit of everything. I think the animation part of it, maybe I've drawn a bush and it waves around. So I help do the waving. It's very minimal animation that I do. I haven't done character animation in a long time. So I would be very slow at it.
That's awesome, though. We appreciate your bushes.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we have a question again that's not SRC or art related, but Aditi from North Vancouver wants to know, how was the Earth made?
Big Bang? I think I should ask my science boyfriend. The Earth, it's also a ball, circle. I can make it right now. We could draw a circle, and I draw floating islands on it, because you don't have to be accurate. The Earth's tectonic plates have changed over the years. Maybe this is the future. I don't know what it looks like with Earth. And it also looks like a chocolate cake when you cut into it, because there's like dirt and core center. Oh, it's the most scientific drawing I've ever done. Earth here. It's draw a circle. You can make an Earth of your own. Yeah.
We have a question from the chat from Alicia again. What software does Elaine use to make video game animations? And do you have any recommendations on animation software?
I use the Adobe suite. So we definitely animate on the program called Animate. And that's because Adobe dominates this industry and everybody animates on that. There's also programs that may be more easily accessible called I say accessible, but I think they used to have to pay for them. But there's Harmony and other programs out there. I think there's a lot of nice, simple animation programs on the iPad. Even Procreate has an animation part to it, where you could just add a frame and draw the next drawing. I think that's the best way for you to warm up to animation and learning how to make something move. Just using even traditional paper, giving yourself a bunch of paper and drawing multiple drawings and then flip them, or take a camera, taking multiple pictures of each page, then it's going to move. So that's the best way to get into it for sure. But in the industry, I think Animate is still the most dominant one, because you're able to draw one piece of the arm or the leg and have it move around. You don't have to redo the drawings, and then there's symbols that you could make, and I could get into more technical details of that, but industry animation is different than just traditional animation, where I think it should still be where you start before you cheat with computer programs. Just simple old drawings and multiple drawings of them. Yeah.
Can we ask what made you decide to get into video game animation?
I think I mainly wanted to switch a job at the time. I think I personally don't play that much video games. But at the time, my friend was working at this company, and he recommended me to go there. And I think I wanted a change from the job I was doing. I just wanted more of a challenge. I understood, I learned as much as I can. I think at that time is how I felt. I'm sure there's always stuff I could have learned from next job, but it was a great recommendation. I really like the company I'm at. And I think what I like about working in video games is being able to do a bit of everything. Well, I guess that applies to an indie game studio. So it's a smaller studio. So I get to do a bit of everything. I think bigger gaming studios might be different. But the cool thing is the thing that you're making could be in game the next second, and you could walk around and you could be in the world. I could see my bush sway in the background. It's like, is this swaying a good pace or not? And you're working with other programmers. So that's people I never had to work with before, and seeing how they think and working with a team. It's really fun. So yeah.
Awesome. Dana from Burnaby wants to know, what is your favorite part about drawing?
Ooh. My favorite part about drawing, seeing it come to life, I guess. I think for the children's book illustration, when it's on a page in front of you and the other kids are flipping through it, enjoying the story, it's like, oh, it's a thing that's out there. That's really fun. I think being happy with your work is like it's expressing yourself and your message through your artwork, and when that's done, like when you think you've achieved what, like you got your feelings out on the page, like take a deep breath, and then like that's kind of nice. It's like, okay, I released the message that I wanted to say, and being able to have that ability of using art to express myself is, yeah.
Awesome. So with that in mind, what did it feel like when you got to see your first book, like in a bookstore or in the library?
Ooh, it was very, very exciting. I think I remember going to chapters and just being like, I'm gonna go find my book. Where's Stana, which is the writer's name's last name, and like trying to find the right red spine. And because you grow up looking at the books from the libraries and didn't think you could be one of them. And or even hearing from, I think it's more heartwarming when you hear from people. It's like, oh, my kid really enjoys your book or has been reading this every day. And that's just because that means your message that you sent out to the world is being received. And it's very nice feeling. I can't describe it.
I think your illustration in My Day with Bonbon, like when he's asleep on the couch or on his like little armchair, is perhaps one of my most like favorite things I've seen in a really long time.
Oh, I love
it's so relatable.
Because that's how my grandpa sleeps, or you because everybody's grandpa sleeps that way, right? No, but mine does.
Sleep in an armchair, yeah. It's a pretty common thing.
Yeah.
And so we have a question from Timothy, who wants to know, do you have any advice for people who want to make art for a living?
Ooh. It's doable. Believe in it. I mean, yeah, it's really fun. And I think there's a lot you could do in art to make a living, surprisingly. Of course, you could also still be like a traditional artist that sells your art to galleries. You could make a living that way too. But there's also making art for video games. You can make art for book illustration. You can make art for graphics. All the websites you're looking at, they all need art too, like UI, the little buttons, or album covers are art. Art is everywhere. Editor, illustrations, magazines. So there's a lot you could do in that. And I think it's fun to explore what you like to enjoy the most and keep playing with the different things and seeing what you like the most before you decide on. It's like, okay, I'm going to stay in this job for a little bit. And yeah, good luck. Have fun. I'm glad.
And then, yeah, I think because like one of the things that we really love about you is the fact that you do like video game animation art. And I think it's like a way of showing kids that, you know, storytelling can happen in so many different ways. It doesn't just have to happen with words. It doesn't just have to happen with books. And like you specifically work with background art, and like that also is so important to creating the story, right? It creates the mood and like the setting.
And I think a lot, like our writer does this at my job a lot, is we have art that we create, the concept arts, that we have art in the back of our heads. We might not necessarily put it in words to people, but we've put it on in paper in art form. And the writer takes inspiration from that and looks at that and they change the story from that one point onwards, or it's like a spitballing back and forth situation. And even for the children's book that I have worked with, it's like, oh, I want to do the art this way. This adding this thing in the background would create this other story. And other writers like, yeah, that's really cool. We'll take that. But they're not putting that into words. They just agree with me, be like, yes, please include that in the illustration. And that's something that maybe the readers will find out and be like the blue bear. Maybe it's the blue bear that the kid got for their birthday last year. You never know. It's like you could think of a story. So yeah, it's very true.
can I ask you a question about summer reading club?
Sure.
So, what made you want to be a summer reading club artist, and also how does it feel knowing that your artwork is printed on tens of thousands of posters all across the province right now, and on reading records and on t-shirts and tattoos and
Oh my
so
God.
many things?
Oh, I still
How
have the
does it
tattoo
feel?
here. It's washing out, but I had the tattoo on me too. And so many people was like, you should get that as a real tattoo because it looks good. It's like, oh, so cool. It's still very surreal. I think I've been doing a lot more library visits, and I go there and like I see my art on their random pamphlet or in their poster, that I just like take the poster because take the pamphlet. It's like, I want this. I think I may be reason wanting to join this year, especially as the theme really resonated with me. The word that I've been like pretty much grasping was like emotions. I was like, oh, I do art about emotions. Like this is very me. And the messages that you're telling this year, I absolutely adored. So I applied to be the artist this year. And I'm so glad you gave me the opportunity. Yeah, the art being in libraries, it's weird. It doesn't look like my art. But it's fun for friends who'll be like, that looks like Elaine's art. Like, really? You could tell? That's cool. Yeah.
That's awesome. That is awesome. It's always really exciting for us to see, like, I guess because we get to see the SRC artwork for quite some time before it actually gets out into libraries. And so, you know,
it's different when it's
really,
actually out there in the wild.
Yeah, and like can actually be like revealed and shared with everybody. Yeah, so it's a very exciting time when we get to see like the posters go up on the walls, and we get to start sending out like the shipments of everything, and how excited libraries get and how excited kids get, and it's awesome.
And you're all here now listening to me ramble.
We'll let you keep drawing.
I'm trying.
It's an awesome drawing. We have a question from Timothy who wants to know, how do you get better at creating art?
How do you get better? I think continue to enjoy it and not losing the passion is actually pretty important, because I think I hear people getting tired of doing art and not wanting to do it anymore. It's a common thing to happen. But if you still have the passion of thing you enjoy the most, then you'll want to keep doing it. And then therefore you will eventually get better, and have patience with yourself, draw with your friends, not be afraid to show your art to people, because then you get feedback and and also be open to receiving feedback and take it or don't, but think about it. And do the studies. I've done my share of, not done, but like I've in school learned this, like, okay, anatomy, it's very boring, but like we have to learn this, and it brings your art to the next level a little bit. And then you do this picture, and then looks a little bit better than the picture. You haven't seen the pictures of your old drawing that you've done 10 years ago. When you redraw your old drawings, it does get better. Look at your old art and be like, I have improved. Yeah, it's really fun. So keep doing it.
Awesome. That's awesome. Is there like one preferred medium that you prefer the most? Because we see a lot of your digital artwork, right? But you do a lot of artwork with like painting and stuff like that.
Yeah, I definitely might be enjoying watercolor and gouache the most. But I also do have art supplies, probably too much, or like one of everything. I have like a collection. It's like, I don't have this thing yet. It's the same thing as the other one, but a little bit different. So I like collecting them too, because I think using the traditional media is part of my inspiration. Like playing with a new set of crayons that has a different effect inspires me to want to use the crayons. Therefore, I'll create a picture using these crayons. So the art supplies itself is an inspiration point, actually. And I've done more gouache and watercolor because it's quite portable, and it's different from the computer, so I could not have to stare at the computer screen after work. Yeah. And seeing the water act with the paint, and it will create effects that I didn't control, is quite fun.
I actually had a question. I was wondering, I know, Elaine, you were recently in Europe, and I was just
Mhm.
wondering if you could talk a little bit about how you were inspired there and what kind of art you created there.
That's awesome. A question. It comes to my art in many different ways. Like one more obvious thing is like I paint while I'm on location. I like to draw while like sitting at a coffee shop sipping coffee, European coffee, a croissant, and absorbing the light that is surrounding me. And I think when you're drawing art on location, you're more quiet because you're like sitting down, like watching people's conversations come to you, and you notice details in the building that you're drawing in front of you that you wouldn't have if you're just walking by because you're drawing it. So that's really fun. Another part is like really abstractly, I was inspired. Say, I was in Norway and there was a lot of Viking stuff, and I was still doing work for my video games, like Viking stuff. I could draw buildings that's inspired by Vikings, and like the details I've seen in the buildings over there, the architecture is different. They have different shapes, different materials. I was like, oh, maybe I could bring that into my design in video games. So things that you're seeing while you're traveling does come into your art in like many different ways. It might not actually be the art you created while you were there on location might not look like the thing I was observing, but it's part of your visual library. And it's in my head of like, how do I draw a bat? I've seen a bat that one time. That's the only bat I know. So I know that one. Or like I know that building. I know Vikings have this type of roof because I remember going there. Um, I don't have the best of memory, but hopefully they're in there somewhere.
And I had another question. So as a writer, I'm actually curious about the relationship and like the process of
Mhm.
working with an illustrator in terms of like your experience with your picture books. What was that interaction like?
Yeah, I think everybody's experience with that would be different. And I think I can only speak from my experience as the illustrators to someone else's words, is that the publishers contact me and they provide me with like a general one sentence pitch of like, this is a story that we need illustrations for. Are you interested? And if I am interested, they will give me the manuscript, because usually when they've been contacted to illustrate, they kind of already have the manuscript, so words decided. So I've worked with the manuscript given to me that's final, or like that's a work in progress. The work in progress one was really fun because I could give my feedback, because you're such a big part of the story as well when you're doing the illustrations. So I was very fortunate that the publishers I was working with decided that they will take my suggestions, and they change up the manuscript, and it became better in my opinion. It got better. And then you're prouder to do the artwork behind those words. And then I work with the new manuscript, and they put the words on top of my pictures, play it around, see if it works well together. It's like a collaborative process, I'd say. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool what you said about how in the video game world, as well as with your picture books, that the writers might actually change
Mhm.
the outcome of the work based on the art. I think that's so cool.
Yes.
So we're headed to the last few minutes of our
Oh,
stream. So does anybody have any more questions in the chat? Just please leave any questions you have left over for Elaine.
no, I didn't finish painting this thing.
Yeah, speed paint, speed paint.
Again, lasso tool. Wow. Big.
We have a couple more that we haven't asked quite yet, but I guess, did you want to talk about your cat Honey? Someone
Like
asked, why did you name your cat Honey?
I adopted my cat from a friend, so she got that name. It was actually Honey Puss Puss, um, full name. But I was like, she's very sweet. I think if it was me, I wouldn't have named her Honey, because it's like, oh, such a sweet name. But she was the sweetest cat, so she deserved that name. And I have a lemon at home, so it becomes Honey Lemon when she sleeps in the lemon.
Oh. And then I guess Jojo wants to know, what is the theme about? We all know it's all together now, but that's so simple. So when you heard all together now, you mentioned some emotions and what you do for what people would do together.
Yeah.
How do you think COVID might have impacted like what you wanted to do for your drawings for this?
I think it definitely affected in the fact that I think I really missed hanging out with people. I've drawn activities that I wish I could do, like having a potluck, or maybe when I was drawing that, the emotions came through of like the cozy feeling that might have came through more because I was missing it, or um playing sports and all the things. I think their emotions was one of the things we worked with. Yes, Stephanie, basically Stephanie told me what it was to draw. No, just kidding. um, we talked about it together. It was a collaboration. Yeah. And I think I mentioned this in a lot of my workshops. It was like the quill is kind of like little Zoom screens when I'm talking with all my friends, everybody's cameras, piecing everybody's lives together. And it kind of feels like post-COVID life a little bit. Everything is in little images. Yeah, getting to connect with people again and realizing how much you miss it when you don't have it is a big part.
And I think we have a couple of final questions, so sort of about like your inspiration and all of that. But I guess, what would be your favorite thing to draw?
Favorite thing
you could only draw one thing.
Oh, is this like one of those questions that you can only draw one thing for the rest of your life and nothing else?
I guess so. What would be your most favorite thing?
Plants. They come in so many different shapes. That's why I love your backgrounds. Like there's so many different plants of different shapes. I could go crazy with all the shapes and it'll be something. It'd be alien plant.
It's awesome. Awesome. And in terms, there's someone named Kishav who wants to know how did you create your passion for drawing or painting?
Oh, I didn't mention passion earlier. It's like, how do I create that? Oh, that's is it created? I think it is creative sometimes, right? Because sometimes you do lose it and you don't like it as much sometimes. Looking at other people's art helps me being inspired by, I was like, oh, this person made their feelings known through this way, or they conveyed this message so well. And everybody's different, but for me, that inspires me. That doesn't discourage me. I was like, I kind of go like, I could do that too, or I could do something similar. Not being not being defeated by seeing someone else's art being too good. What else? How did I create it? Doing the thing that you really, really enjoy. If you like playing with crayons, like I actually have right now, go for it and have fun with it.
And I feel like we do have one question.
Any last questions in the chat?
We have one question from Anvitha, who lives in Burnaby, and Anvitha wants to know, where can we find all of your beautiful paintings?
You could find them on my website called elainechen.ca, I think.
Yeah. You drop that in the chat for everybody.
Or Instagram, Tiny Clovers. I think I post there a bit more often, but
yeah. Awesome. Okay, so I think we're gonna rest possibly all of our questions. Do you want to quickly? Are you almost done your drawing?
I was trying to finish at least Charlie, because then we could bring them to space or change it up. Whoa. They're underwater now.
It's pretty awesome. Oh, the seal. I love the seal. The seal is one of my favorites.
Yeah, these are, do I have the birds with, I can open up the bird one and you can all like guess the birds. So I think, I can't name all this is chickadee. I had to look it up myself, so I can't.
feel like
Name them
you have a
all.
robin there.
The red chase, that's probably a robin, right? Or
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, this one probably red-winged blackbird. Aha.
Do you have a pigeon?
I do not. They're a little bit bigger. So I did not
Okay.
include a pigeon in this one. Oh, this might be like Whiskey Jack or something. Yeah.
Okay. So I think we're almost at for time. Thank you so much, Castle Gar Library and all the other libraries that are here joining us today and all of our friends that are here. So Madeline and I would like to thank Elaine and all of you for joining us today. And we love seeing all your questions. So remember to visit your local libraries because they're all fabulous. And we're wishing you all a very happy summer reading. So, and we'll post Elaine's drawing somewhere. We'll put it somewhere. And this will be up on our YouTube channel as well. So thank you, everybody, and have a good rest of your day.
Bye.
Everybody.